Thank you, Sharon. I'm John Mangiaratti. I'm the town manager. Thanks for coming to the Drive with John program. We've been doing it here for eight years practically, and it's nice to see a crowd here. Only one person up front here, but that's okay. We're recording live on ActonTV, so anything you say will be broadcast to the masses, so keep aware of that. I have a few commercial updates for folks. Starting in April, there's going to be a pretty exciting event over at the Recreation Building, which is up on Audubon Hill. It's April 11th. It's the Make a Plan workshop to be prepared for emergencies, and that's Public Health Week, so there's a nice little collaboration between the MRC, Health and Human Services, and our Acton Fire Department, where they'll be helping people figure out how to make sure that they're ready to go in case there's an emergency. So that's 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. I encourage you to check that out. I can give you more information if you're interested. Oh, question, yeah.
Very important. I like your top.
Thank you, that is important. Yeah, start off with a compliment. Yes, and we'll roll right into it. Thank you, nice to see you. So at this program, I would typically introduce myself and talk a little bit about the town. Has anybody not been here before? Is this anybody's first time at the program? Okay, so you know who I am. Oh, okay, I'm John Mangiaratti. I'm the town manager. And I've been working here since 2018. Before that, I worked in Andover and Westford. I live in Westford I have a family with some active kids, and my wife's a teacher in a nearby community. And I love serving the public. It's something I always wanted to do since I was in college. And I went to college in Worcester, and I used to read the newspaper. Remember newspapers? And it was a Telegram and Gazette, and they had an awesome local section. And I was right in Maine South in Worcester, and I would read the local section every day. I think it came out every day back then, right? And I eventually found a way to get an internship at City Hall, working for the city manager at the time. So that's how I got into it, and I never looked back. So I'm excited to be here now in Acton with a community of very engaged residents. We have departments that provide services like our Veterans Services Officer, James McCrae. He doesn't just help veterans find access to resources, he also prepares a monthly breakfast and then cleans up afterwards. He's the man, James. He does it right. He does it so well that we expanded him into Boxborough, and he helps Boxborough as well. So he connects veterans to care. It's an important service that he provides, one of the many that we do here. So that's a little bit about what's going on. We have a lot, and you should stay tuned because this summer, all the work that we've been doing a lot of investments in this community thanks to your support. And a lot of these things are going to start to be opened, right? So you've invested, we invested decades of thought and time and planning and town meeting votes and funding in Kelly's Corner. And I just heard from the construction team yesterday. They're starting up again Monday. And believe it or not, we'll be opening Kelly's Corner this summer. It'll be done. It's got to be done, right? So that's a big one. And part of that will be some pretty cool things. I mean, it's not just a beautiful set of new infrastructure and benches and sidewalks and lamps and trees. We also have some cool public art. A funny thing about that project is people were very upset when we were cutting down trees to build it. And you know, it's natural. I think people get attached to trees, and I do too. But we had to remove some to make the project work. But through some creative thinking from Jim Snyder Grant and several other residents and some of our team in the planning department, we did a project that was called Legacy Tree Project. And we said, okay, hey, artists and woodworkers out there, we're cutting down these big, beautiful oak trees. Come up with a project idea, and we'll save a couple big chunks of the trees for you. And there's a person named Brad Spinney who put in a proposal and said, I want to take those and make them into beautiful benches and some other signs. And they did it. He did it with some students at Minuteman High School, and they finished some beautiful benches that have honoring the Sesame Street, which is kind of we have a nice connection to Sesame Street through Brad Spinney's relative, Carol Spinney, who was the puppeteer, most famously known as Big Bird, but he did many other things. So that will have a little a park with benches made from an old tree that people were upset about taking down. So a lot of little cool little things that are going to be happening there. We're going to rename that street to Carroll Spinney Way, the old community lane, which is the street that goes by the banks, and then you can take a left into Roach Brothers. That'll be Carroll Spinney Way. So that's exciting. Kelly's Corner. Thank you for your patience. Other things that will be opening this summer, there'll be a new dog park. Right near the highway on Main Street. It looks pretty nice. It's almost done if you've driven by. That'll be a nice new amenity for our community, and a lot of people have dogs, so I'm sure it'll get a lot of use. Right behind Town Hall, we finally are finishing a project to turn an old, ugly, dilapidated single-family home that was vacant for 25 years, just sitting there, into a nice community space. We don't have a name for it, but it's 17 Woodbury Lane, and it's going to have a nice patio and a nice space for small, not this big, but small gatherings, programs, and that'll be opening. We have our first event there in April, and we'll also be doing a grand opening as well. Other things that we're opening up, the Woodlawn Chapel, which is a beautiful chapel we have in the Woodlawn Cemetery. We made that accessible. We brought in some granite that matches it perfectly, which was one of the reason why the project was delayed. They are starting work up soon if they haven't already. That should be done this summer as well. We also have a new park on River Street. River Street, remember Lazaro Paving was a very ugly building. Sorry if anyone liked it, but it was. And it was a pretty rough site, and a dam that we bought, and we had to tear it down because it was failing. And so we got a bunch of grants to do that. We took down the dam, got rid of Lazaro Paving, and now we use grants and other sources to make a beautiful park there. And the park is going to have remnants of the dam, remnants of where the water used to go, so you can go and get a sense for what it was like back then. So really cool things. And all those things, by the way, we're paid for with other people's money. Not other people, but not local tax dollars. I think there's a lot of concern that people have about when we're making investments in our town, how it impacts your tax bill. And all the things that I just mentioned were funded from ARPA, CARES, tons of grants, a federal earmark, CPA fund, which I guess is your money, but it's your money dedicated for specific purposes. So I just wanted to let you know that those are all exciting projects that are starting this year that were all done through external funding sources for the most part. So less than 45 days from now is a big night for us here in Acton, town meeting. Everybody gonna come? Thinking about it? If you don't wanna come, you can always watch it. You just can't vote from home, unfortunately. But ActonTV does broadcast it. They do a nice job capturing multiple angles. We're planning, we have 40 articles on the warrant right now, which is pretty, that's about right. Sometimes we have a little bit less, but we usually are in the 35 to 45 range. A lot of normal ones that we do every year, approving budgets and all kinds of other kind of paperwork type things that we do at the end of the warrant, but there's also some really interesting new ones. Town Hall HVAC project, not glamorous, but very important. We're going to be gutting the entire mechanical system because it's failing and moldy and not operating. So we're going to take all that out, replace it with a new one, and make some other minor repairs to the building while we're in there. It's a pretty big project, $3.75 million to do that. We did because we're going to use an all-electric heating system, which was consistent with our climate goals. We did get a $1 million grant for that, which is a big help. And we're also going to use solar revenue to fund a pretty big portion of it. So the actual amount of tax funds that are going to be used for it is reduced significantly through those two programs. So we're excited about that. We need to see if town meeting will approve that. It said no last year, but it was pretty close, and I think it just needed some more information. So we have more information this year. Hopefully it's enough. We're also going to bring the DPW project back. We're going to focus on a pared-down version of the building, a pared-down scope of the work, and really focus on what we need to provide core services and get our people and our kind of working operations into a modern facility. And we're going to keep the old facility as it is, which is helpful. It's one less thing to spend a lot of money on. We'll keep it the way it is. And if we get this new building built, we'll come back and look at that other building another time. If there's any safety issues that need to be addressed, we'll address them, but we're not going to spend a bunch of money investing in that building. We're going to focus on the new building. Hopefully that'll bring the total cost down. If you remember, when we brought this to town meeting in 2023, we were thinking 35 to 40 million. And we ended up coming in around that last year. I'm hoping we'll be talking much different numbers. We're actually going to have a cost estimate that we'll be presenting to the select board on the first week of April. So we'll know, that'll go on the warrant. Hopefully folks will support that and we can move that project forward. Other things on the warrant, we have CPC, always a really interesting program. Community Preservation Committee is a group of volunteers, residents. They get together and they look at applications from the whole community, not just the town. The whole community can apply for projects for historic preservation, open space preservation, community housing, and recreation. Those are 4 uses that you can use CPA funds for. The town adopted the CPA program, anyone know, 25 years ago, 20 years ago, more or less. And it's done so many wonderful things with it. Bought lots of really important open space parcels, built some important recreation facilities, preserved a lot of historic features. So that they'll come with recommendations under Article 10, and the folks will have to support. If the town meeting supports it, they move forward. If not, they go back to the drawing board. Another interesting project this year is we have a major global headquarters in our community, Insulet. Anyone know what Insulet Corp does? Right, they make medical devices primarily for insulin pumps for people that have diabetes, and it's a patch that you can put on your arm or wherever, and instead of having to check on your numbers and feed yourself insulin through, I guess, a needle, it does it all automatically. This is a product that they've developed, and it's really taken off. It's a very fast-growing company, and in 2017, town meeting voters, many of you maybe were there, approved a tax increment financing agreement to try to encourage them to build their global headquarters in Nagog Park. It's at the end, all the way to the end on the left, before you get to the woods. And they did that. They invested, I think, $120 million in that building in 2017. At the time, Acton Boxborough Regional School District was our largest employer, and I think second and third were maybe Hartz Corp and maybe a few other smaller companies. But now Insulet is our largest employer. On paper, they're tied with the school at 1,000, but I can't imagine they both have exactly 1,000 people. I think that's just the math that someone didn't do. So they're our largest employer, and they want to add to their facility. They are looking in Massachusetts. They're looking in other parts of the country. And the select board met Monday night, and I asked them to authorize me to work to try to get them to stay here and to grow here. So we know, as you know, we have a lot of vacant buildings in town, a lot of vacant commercial buildings in town. When we have vacant commercial buildings, the property owners are able to not, their taxes, they don't have to pay as much taxes if they have vacant buildings. I don't know the exact math, but they can file for an abatement, and it impacts our tax base, because if 90% of our tax base is residential and 10% is commercial, and the 10% isn't carrying its weight, and it's diminishing, that puts more pressure on the 90% of you. So when we increase the whole revenue picture by 2.5%, we grab 2.5%, and we're going to take it from those two pools. If the values on the commercial side is going down, or are going down, we have to take even more out of the residential side. So commercial tax growth is one of the best ways to provide tax relief to our residents. So I think it's important. The Economic Development Committee thinks it's important. The Select Board authorized me to do it because they think it's important. So there are things that you do. There are things that happen when companies make renovations and do buildings, and not everything people like. People don't always like new construction. There's resource constraints that we have to work through. But overall, I'm going to work with them to see if to get them to stay. They're looking to add another few hundred jobs and make a pretty good expansion here in somewhere, and we'd like it to be here. So more to come on that. I just wanted to let you know about that. Our Economic Development Committee finished a long-term strategic plan this year, and one of the things that they wanted to focus on was projects like that. So that ultimately, if we're able to successfully negotiate a TIF, that will get to town meeting, and town meeting voters will have to vote it up or down. We've done two that I'm aware of, the Insulet one originally, and then a few years ago we did one for a smaller stone wall manufacturer on Knox Trail, and that was approved, I think, 2 years ago. So this will be the third in the last decade or so. So that's important, economic development. Other things, we're going to establish an opioid stabilization fund. The opioid epidemic was a horrible thing for everywhere in this country, but it had an impact in Acton as well. Attorney generals and other people negotiated settlements with all the suppliers of those opioids, whether it's the pharmacies or the manufacturers themselves. And as a result, they had settlements, and they're having to pay communities throughout the country money. So we've been getting that. We have about $150,000 that we received from the opioid settlements, and we can't spend it unless we put it into an account and then set it up to go. So that'll be at town meeting as well, and that money can be used for things like drug prevention programs, some similar community wellness programs, and some other public health things. So we're doing a community health assessment right now, and I expect some of the recommendations to come out of that will be related to substance abuse or substance misuse issues, and having that funding available will help with that, and it will allow us to not have to use any of our local public health tax dollars to do that work. So it's an exciting thing. I think that's Article 11. And then what else is on the warrant? We have, zoning. We have 4 zoning articles. One of them is actually very, very much geared up on economic development, little things. So our zoning was established, and with good intention, town meeting voted 2/3, but a lot of it has stayed exactly the way exactly the way it was when it was established, just because it's hard to change zoning. And through time, our building department, our planning department, and even my office has encountered businesses that say, I just want to add 500 square feet, and you know, little things that they want to do to keep them here and to allow them to grow in town. Our zoning doesn't allow it. And so our economic development director, our planning director, and our building commissioner, and several other people went through our zoning code and found little things in it that are little barriers to economic development investment, and they've proposed ways to change those. So not overhauling the zoning, but just making it easier in several different ways. And so there's a public hearing on that. Oh, there was a public hearing on that on Tuesday, and they decided to move that article forward. The other zoning articles are related to non-conforming lots. Anyone know what that means? Anyone live in a non-conforming lot? You probably do. There's a lot of them. Basically, it means that if your house was built, if you own land that looked like this and you built a house on it right here, right up against the road, the new zoning comes in and says you need to be X feet from the road as a setback. So because your house is so close to the road, you're in a non-conforming lot. You don't have to take your house down or anything, but if you say, we really want to build a sun porch, and the planning office will say, I'm sorry, you're in a non-conforming lot. If you want to do anything to your house, you need to go to the Board of Appeals to get an approval to increase the size of your property by to build a sun porch. So it was onerous, right? I mean, so our planning office came up with a plan to change the ratio. So it used to have to go to the zoning board for a very low threshold. So they're proposing to increase the threshold to make it more reasonable. So a sun porch wouldn't trigger it, but if you're going to add 3 bedrooms or something, or a bedroom and a big thing, it would trigger it. So that's my way of explaining it. The planners will explain it much better, so stay tuned for that explanation. So that's town meeting. I hope you're there. It's May 4th, and we'll definitely go May 5th. The moderator has lately been trying to not stay too late, so we'll definitely plan on 2 nights. If you need a ride, we can set you up with transportation from the van. If you're If you're not able to attend due to a medical issue, we actually have a way to set it up so you can participate remotely. It's a narrow path for people that would be able to do that. You can't just be like, I have a cold, I don't feel like coming in, or, it's got to be something that is evaluated as a serious concern that doesn't allow you to attend in person. So if that's something that applies to you or someone you know, reach out to our office. We can help you figure that out. Those are the town meeting. I wanted to make sure I hit town meeting. The other thing I would mention is that the budget was approved by the select board last month. There's going to be a public hearing on the budget Tuesday night at the Finance Committee. Every year, the Finance Committee sits with us during the budget presentations, and once we hand the budget over to them, they have to look at it and really analyze it and decide if they're going to support it to town meeting. They're going to make that decision Tuesday night, most likely. And they'll also be going through other warrant articles. So if you want to watch that, those are always on ActonTV. Thank you, Mark. And I think it's going to be in person at Town Hall if you want to be there in person. So those are the things that I wanted to cover today. There's some development updates that I can get to through questions. I always forget to answer the questions that people hand me in writing, so I'm going to do that right now. The intersection at School Street at Lawsbrook is dangerous. How can we fix that? Our DPW does a lot of work to try to address safety issues in town. That's a dangerous intersection. There are traffic calming things that can be done to try to get people to slow down. I don't know of a specific plan for that intersection, but yeah, thank you for the question. I understand that it was a pretty tragic accident there this year, and there's been accidents there in the past, and I think we will continue to look at it and see if there's little things that we can do with road, traffic calming by clearing some vegetation or doing other things like that. But if it's changing the intersection, it's gonna be a little bit of a longer process. So, follow-up question? Go ahead, sure. Well, let's get started with the questions.
Intersection, nothing's going to help it.
Without a three-way intersection?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the vegetation, the speed is still there any time of day, so.
People drive too fast. I know, I wish there was a way that wasn't the case, but people just drive too fast. We actually have a pace car program, which I think we've only had 6 or 7 people take out the pace car stickers. I guess people don't want to put a yellow bumper sticker on the back of their car that says, I'm a pace car. But if you want to, we have them at the engineering office. And
What does that mean?
it just means like I drive the speed limit and don't honk at me. I don't know. Yeah. No, I mean, it's something, like I said, we're trying everything, right? So we try to make improvements to the streetscape. We try to look at speed limits. We put up those flashing message board signs that tell you how fast you're going, and we move those around so people don't get comfortable just looking at them and say, oh, look, I'm going 40. We move them around. We even tried a pace car program where we said, we're trying to get people to slow down. And maybe there's going to be a dozen or so residents that want to help us. And if you want to do it, let me know. I'll get you one. You want a pace car sticker?
I might.
Okay.
I'm suggesting that maybe you could put the stickers like at the library. Nobody knows where the engineering office is. I mean, I shouldn't say nobody, but probably not many people go to the engineering office.
Sure, we can put them at the library. It's a great
Put
suggestion.
them at the library or even here. I mean, why not?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good idea. Well, I think maybe we made it too complicated. If you have to sign up for it, maybe we should just hand out the stickers. You're right. We made it so you have to sign up for it and sort of commit to it, but maybe we should just hand out the stickers and see if that works. That's a good idea. Thank you for that. What other questions or suggestions do folks have? Yes.
Thank you for that update on the town meeting. I was impressed you've been spending too much time with the warrant to go through all of it off the cuff. But as you mentioned, one of the important things is the budget discussion. And just last week, you and the Acton Leadership Group met to look at how the ALG plan was leading up to the budgets. And so I have 2 suggestions related to that. One related to the comment that I made at the end of ALG. So the first suggestion is A portion of that meeting was devoted to the discussion of a $10,000 difference between $100+ million revenue number and $100 million plus expense number. There is no person in that room that thought that there weren't lots of places that were off by more than $10,000. So my suggestion is that when ALG convenes next year, that with respect to that bottom line agreement, if that bottom line agreement is within $100,000, that's the same number. You're done, because otherwise you're just talking about the noise. My second suggestion is with respect to looking at the future. It's come to my attention that the future is difficult to predict. And so,
wait. What evidence do you have for that?
and so the other part of the ALG discussion that I thought was interesting is this question is, what should we do at those out years in terms of looking to close the gap? And the comment that I made at the end of ALG that I'm interested to hear your reaction to is that the important part of the out years are the assumptions. The assumption that we make about level service, the assumption that we make about inflation. If you wanted to make an assumption about oil prices, put that there. Because what those things do is they really serve as a reference point so that you know that when you violate an assumption, or if we continue with these assumptions, that we have a problem, they tell you, sort of directionally what you need to do. So what do you think about both of those ideas? We get rid of talking about $10,000 and we focus our future thinking about what are we really assuming about the future?
Okay, well, that's a great question, even with applause. So just for everyone else, in case they don't pay as close attention as John does to that, the Acting Leadership Group is representatives from the Finance Committee, Select Board, and School Committee, and we meet regularly throughout the budget season to try to tackle the bigger issues of revenue and what's available and how we're going to make the budget balance every year. As mentioned, we had another successful year. We were able to work together to deliver budgets, schools and municipal, that are within the revenues are available to us. I disagree that we should just write off $10,000 as a rounding error. I think that as for transparency, we have a changes tab and we show every dollar that changed in the planning process. So I disagree with you there. In terms of the out years, I do think it makes sense to use, not just put numbers, but actually justify your forecast. So for example, it's a 5-year plan, right? So we have the current year and then we have the 4 years that follow. We know exactly what we're proposing for FY27 because we just did a whole budget process to do it, right? The following years, in the past few years, we just had, okay, $40 million budget. It's probably going to go up 3.75%, and that was our forecast. It's probably not that wrong, but it's not that helpful if you raise the concern that John brought up. So what we actually did this year was we said, okay, within that $40 million budget, more or less, there's certain big ticket numbers that we always know we're going to have. Health insurance, pension assessment, debt service, things like that. And there's 8 of those. So what we actually did was we made 8 subcategories on that forecast. And we said, all right, we think health insurance is going to go up 7.5% next year. That's optimistic because it hasn't been in the single digits in a few years, but we're hoping, okay? Pension assessment, we think that'll go up 6.6% because that's what it always has gone up. Other items we have forecasts in there. And so as we get closer to next year and we get more realistic numbers, you're right, we can make assessments and say, oh, looks like health insurance is coming in at 15 again. We gotta rethink this. Or, oh, good news, health insurance is coming in at 5. We have some more room than we thought. So thank you for those observations and those comments. I appreciate it. Let's go to our first-time attendee over here.
Hi. Yeah, I'm Jim DeMott. I'm the president of Ottawa North South Association. I've got 2 safety concerns.
Okay.
First one is at the intersection of Ottawa Drive, Faulkner Hill, and High Street. There's a lot of foot traffic that crosses, particularly from Faulkner Hill. The kids have to cross the street to get the school bus, plus we have all the people walking up to Pratt's Hill, and that's pretty dangerous there for them to cross. I'd like to see a crosswalk with a flashing light.
On High Street? Yeah, so I think, as you know, if you live in that neighborhood, we've spent the last 15 years trying to put sidewalks on High Street. We finally finished the last connection last year, or maybe the year before. The thing about crosswalks is that there are places that people cross, and we would love to have them do it safely, but just painting a crosswalk on the street doesn't make a safe crossing. Sometimes it's actually worse because it gives people the expectation that it's safe, and it really isn't. And when I say really isn't, it could be a situation where the sight lines aren't good enough to support someone crossing there, and so we would never want to encourage it. So that's something that our engineering staff would have to look at, where along that stretch makes sense.
However, I mean, everybody has to cross there, and what I'm talking about is the kind of crosswalk where they push a button and the yellow lights go off to stop the traffic.
Yeah, yep, we've used those successfully throughout town. That's a good suggestion, we can look at it.
And the second concern I have is the intersection of Central Street and Main Street. If you're coming down Central Street from the north, the angle at which it comes into Main Street, you have to turn your head about 100.
Oh, it's a national record. I know. It's
Like you did across.
Oh, good news. We just got $1 million from the state to do that project. You're talking about heading towards the commuter lot?
If you're heading south on Central Street onto south on Main Street,
Yeah, so we got $1 million to do a complete streets improvement project from Main Street to the commuter lot. So I think that should address, well, hopefully that'll address that concern. It is a strange angle, especially going up that hill. I agree.
it would be great if you could turn 90 degrees so that you're 90 degrees to the road.
Yeah, we always try to tee up intersections so that 90 degrees, because that's the safest condition. So thank you for that. I think the DPW had been planning that work and prioritized the entire Central Street as a place to focus on. We only have funding for that one stretch, but it's a good start, and that's kind of the critical point anyways. So thank you for that. Yes, question over here.
So it's actually a comment about the gentleman's first concern about High Street. And the Transportation Advisory Committee has had that location on their radar. And I think engineering has looked at that area. There's a gentleman that lives in the same area that crosses there regularly who's blind. And he has requested a crosswalk at that exact same location.
What did they say?
I don't think they said anything as far as the sight line goes. I think it's fine.
Okay.
I think the whole thing is funding.
Funding. Okay, so the Transportation Advisory Committee is looking at that very issue. So thank you for that, Paula. Over here, yes.
Lots of new restaurants in town. Anything to announce?
New restaurants. Let's see. Me too. Me too. We encourage you to go to the ones that are already here as much as you can, because it's tough to stay in business as a restaurant, particularly ones that aren't a chain. Like Wendy's can have a tough day, but I think a place like the Velvet Vine, that two women started this business up 2 years ago, or maybe a little bit more, to try to provide some offerings to the community. If people don't come there, they have no backdrop, they have no marketing, they have no, so stuff like that, it's tough. So I encourage you to check out. You may not love everything on their menu, but you can still get a cup of coffee or a soda and support their businesses. But a couple new places that are, the Stop and Shop, where it used to be a Kmart. We have a couple we have a sandwich shop going in there. Jersey Mike's, which is a chain. It's pretty good though, I guess. And then the Dunkin' Donuts on Great Road next to the bike shop. You know what I'm talking about? You remember how Dunkin' Donuts used to have Dunkin'/Baskin? They used to be Baskin Robbins. Now it's going to be Dunkin'/Jimmy John's. Jimmy John's is a national sandwich chain. So a few new sandwich options for you in town. We had Wonder. Wonder is a pretty cool scene. It's wild. Someone asked a few months ago if they just reheat frozen meals, and the answer is definitively no. They craft gourmet meals, and they have very proprietary ways of doing it. That I was on the grand opening. There was a tour of the kitchen, and they made everybody put their phones away. They didn't want anybody taking pictures of it. because it's a pretty unique system that they've developed. I think people have enjoyed it so far. You can get pad thai and ribs, and southern barbecue ribs, and you can, if you're with someone that likes that and you like the other, and they both taste as good as they should. So it's a cool concept. In addition to that, the bagel place in that plaza is doing pretty well. Big portions. They have cookies that are like this big in the counter. I don't know if you've been there. I'm going to try one soon. I haven't tried one yet. But that's all I can think of, but I'll get back to you on other ones. And what else? Any other questions? Yes.
Monday night, did the select board have any comments about the land on Taylor Road, the land that's for sale?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. So 46 Taylor Road is a piece of property that if you're on Taylor Road, if you've driven by lately, there's a few for sale signs there. And there's actually three properties, a house, a vacant land, and then a house. And 46 Taylor Road is a vacant land in the middle of it. And the property owners had a special tax status of that property called Chapter 61B, which basically means we're going to not do anything on this land. It's going to be preserved for as long as we own it. And as a result, the assessor gives you a reduction on your taxes. So it's a pretty cool program. It's a great benefit for the family, or for the owner rather. But the catch is that sure, we'll give you a tax break, but when you decide to sell that property, you need to give the town the right of first refusal to buy it from you. That's the exchange. And so what that does is it gives communities a chance to allow a property owner to pay less taxes for open space, and then it gives the town a chance to buy it before it goes out to the free market. So the mechanics of that are kind of complicated, but essentially the seller has to get a purchase and sales on the property, and then the seller has to say, here's the purchase and sales I got for the property. Can you match this? You have 120 days. It's called a right of first refusal. So that happened in February, or more or less, and the select board's been having public hearings to decide whether or not it wants to exercise its right of first refusal. The purchase price is $1.4 million. Normally in land negotiations, you can negotiate it. In this case, you can't. You either have to pay the $1.4 million that developer was going to pay, or you say, no, thank you. So the board had several meetings. There's another one scheduled for April, the first week of April, and they'll decide at that time whether they want to exercise that right. We heard a lot of public comment, a lot of people coming out saying, as you may know, that's right next to the Arboretum. The Arboretum abuts it, or is adjacent to it. So people are saying that if we were to buy this parcel, it would create additional access to the Arboretum, and also road frontage for potentially future parking or just ways for accessing to it. Other people have said it's important to protect open space regardless of where it is, and this happens to be next to the Arboretum, which makes it better. Other people have said we should have housing there. There's been a mix of different things. I think the select board they will make a decision on that next meeting, because they have to, because if they decide to do it, we need to ask the Community Preservation Committee, which I mentioned earlier, if they would support the funding of it, because it's open space, and it would be a perfect use for CPA funding. So all that has to happen in early April in time to get it on the warrant, because that would then have to go to town meeting, because anytime the town buys land, it needs 2/3 support of the voters of town meeting to buy land. Even if it's just a little square inch of property for an easement, we need 2/3 vote of voters, and then we need the funding. So that's the story with that. We haven't, the story hasn't ended yet. We'll see what happens in early April, and then if it goes to town meeting or not, but that's an important consideration.
So that's not a warrant article yet?
It's not a warrant article yet until there's a decision being made, but the warrant is going to be going to print on April 14th, so that's the time we have to figure this out. Question in the back, yes.
Speaking of CPA money, other towns in Massachusetts have used CPA money to pay for HVAC systems in historic buildings. The town hall is a historic building. So legally, and you've done a great job of getting $1 million grant. I mean, the proposal was turned down last year. The $1 million grant hopefully will reduce the amount of resistance. But I think if CPA was used to fund or partially fund the HVA system, that's consistent with what other towns are doing. They did that in Concord for the Louisa May Alcott House and a number of other places, especially if there's an upgrade in the system going to, you know, more current heating methodologies.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. The suggestion was to seek CPC funding for the HVAC project at the town hall. And for that, it's tough because the CPC has funded things like gutters, right? Who wants to do a gutter project? But they supported it because we have wooden gutters on this historic building and they were rotting. And so we asked them for $120,000 a few years ago. We did that project. We also have the bell tower, which is a historic feature of that building, iconic historic feature of that building, which needs to be repaired. So we've already asked the CPC for $600,000 to make that repair. So it's not an, well, we would, but it gives us, we need to balance. They don't like to spend all their money on town projects. I mean, the cool thing about the CPA is that it's for the community. It's not just for maintaining town buildings, although that's what I like to use it for. But it's for everything. So if you have a cool project as a community group or a nonprofit, you can go to the CPC and get funding. You know, and so.
And they've done a lot of that.
Right. So I'm worried about them supporting the bell tower. Let me put it that way. So before I asked for another $1 million for HVAC, I want to make sure that they support the core historic fabric project, which I think was more consistent with what they would normally fund. I agree with you that it's eligible, or that it could be eligible. It's just I didn't think it would get a lot of support, and so we found this way. The interesting thing about the funding for the HVAC project, and it's a little bit complicated to describe, but I'm going to do my best. So we're going to town meeting. We're going to ask for $2.75 million because we already got the million, right? We're going to borrow that over 25 years. The debt payments for that will be $225, let's call it, right? Probably $230 for 25 years. Because we have an energy efficiency fund that was dedicated to collect solar revenues and to put into energy efficiency projects, we're actually going to be able to take that $230,000 debt payment and use about $120,000 from the energy efficiency fund to pay for that over 25 years. So the actual debt that we'll be paying from the town budget is closer to $100,000, which is pretty good. So that's why I think there's a lot of reasons why this project, the creative financing for this project is pretty good, and it's a good plan for the town. I think adding CPA would be even more creative, and I think not a bad idea. I just don't think they would support it. So thank you for the suggestion. Yes.
Maybe you've answered this, but the solar panels that are over by the transfer station, what is that used for? Where is that?
So that we harvest energy from the sun, and then we get a credit that we use to pay for electricity bills. So not a great explanation, but it's a financial mechanism. So we're generating revenue from it, and then we're using that revenue to pay off our energy bills throughout the town. So all of our town buildings are using solar revenues to pay for the utility cost, even if they don't have solar on the roof, because we're using that net metering program.
Also, do the town receive any money from recycling things at the transfer station?
I don't think we get a lot of money from recycling. In the old days, it was you could actually generate revenue from recycling newspapers and other things like that, but these days it's pretty neutral. Sometimes you have to pay for it. Usually you have to pay for it. Glass, like the market for glass, you have to pay to get rid of it. You know, there's no one saying that I want your glass to remake other glass. It's just, it's basically a cost. Thank you for the question. Yes, wait a minute, no repeats, hold on. Go ahead.
I just wanted to make sure that we were sort of clear on the solar. So my understanding is that both the schools and the town basically are leasing rooftops or the landfill to a third party, and then that there are payments associated with that. And that in both of those cases, I believe there are buyout clauses so that at the end of 20 or 25 years, if the town or the schools wanted to buy and own and then maintain the panels, that's the way it would work. Is that a correct understanding?
That sounds good, sure, yeah. That's better. I like my explanation better. But yes, that's good. I agree with that. Speaking of solar panels, this spring, which is, I think, isn't spring today? Today. So maybe not right away, but sometime in the next few months, we will be putting a canopy, a solar canopy, over the back parking lot at the public safety facility. So it's kind of cool. I mean, you won't really use it, but when the police officers and the dispatchers come to work, they park in that back lot, and then they go out and work all day long or all night long, and then now they get to park under a canopy, so maybe they won't have to dig out their car if it's snowing, and we'll generate some more solar revenue. So, and it's not going to look horrible. It'll look different, but the one at the museum doesn't look bad, right? The Discovery Museum. You get used to it. So that's exciting. So we're doing that, and we'll try to find other places to add solar if we can. Any more questions? Yes?
What's going to happen to the Conant School, the building itself? Is something happening there?
So yeah, so the school district did a pretty impressive process to figure out how to move forward. It was called AB Forward. And one of the results of that was that they're going to change the way they do elementary schools and schools in general. And as a result, they're closing the Conant School, not using it for education purposes anymore. They may still use it for other reasons. Like that's kind of a moving target since it's so new. If they just, you know, it needs work. It's fine. It doesn't, you know, I think if we're going to use it for another 50 years, we would need to make some improvements to it, but it's fine for now. I think we're actually talking to them to see if we can use it during that HVAC project, because we can't really have all the people in the building during all that work. And if that building's available next year, which it sounds like, well, which it will be, we're seeing if we can use that for town hall for a half a year or a year.
And they discussed that last night at their meeting, at the school committee meeting.
Yeah, it seemed like they were okay with discussing it. So we have a shot at that, which would be, you know, if we had to close town hall, which we will, if that's approved, it would be inconvenient for residents if we spread out our departments all over town. Like if you said, oh, if you want to come to the building department, it's now down at 30 Sudbury. If you want to see the town clerk, you got to go over to this old fire station. If we're able to just move everybody into one place and say, just go a half a mile up the street, I think that would be a pretty convenient way to have a relocation. So, thanks for that question. But ultimately, if the school decides that they don't need that building anymore, like say, you know what, we don't need this for any school, we don't need this for any after school, community ed, anything, then it would become available to the town. But that's yet to be determined. Any other last question? Anyone want the last question? Yes.
This house is speeding along. When's that opening?
The McManus Manor is the big, beautiful building right across the street from the public safety facility that we were just talking about. They're getting pretty close. I know that, I don't have an exact time frame, but I know that they're anxious to get the sewer connection in, which is something that we're working with them on. And they're doing the siding. It looks pretty good. So I would say this year, this summer, if I had to guess, but I can get back to you with this. Does anyone know? Sometime. Yeah, I'm gonna go with this year. Thank you. Sorry. Well, let me get back to you. Let me write down your name, and I'll email you later. Sorry, I got a lot of things in my head. That one isn't in there right now. Anything else? Any other last question? Let's ask on one that I can answer. Okay.
Or a suggestion, do you know what number article for town meeting is the DPW building question?
Yes, I do. It's the budget is Article 4, free cash capital is Article 5, town hall HVAC is number 6, DPW building is number 7.
Because it's important, but people burn out, and as the night goes on, people are gonna leave, especially if they have kids, you know, so I just was sort of hoping it was on the earlier part of than rather way at the end.
Yeah, so the moderator tries to really get the heavy financial articles done the first night. And so, you know, I just told you the 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is the Acton Barksville School District, 9 is Minuteman School District, and 10 is CPC. A lot of times we get to that point and call it a night. It depends on how much discussion happens, but that's what typically happens. Thank you for that. All right, well, nice to see you all, and happy spring, and thanks for being here.